Hello developers, my name is Vikas Kumar and I have around 8 years of experience as a full stack developer, and I'm here to teach you about bind and polyfills of bind today. So first of all, we will understand about how bind works, and then we will go into the polyfills so that we get a good grasp on everything, like why do we use bind and how can we create polyfill for that. We will also understand how do we write polyfill if you're new about that. So let's see, here we have a player one object, and if you see we have a object. In this object we have we have name as Sachin and get details method. So if I now want to use this method, then how can I use that? So I would write player one dot get details, and if I call this now, see, it is printing my name is Sachin, but age and city is undefined. So it is expecting us to provide age and city. So let's say Sachin's age is 45 and he belongs to Mumbai. Now if I call it, we are getting my name is Sachin, age 45, city Mumbai, right? Good. Now, what if I have another player? Let's say player 2, and we create name for player 2. Let's say it is Virat, right? Now I want to use this get details method for this player 2. So in JavaScript you can borrow this function and you can use call, apply and bind, right? So we want to create a function for our player 2. So how can we create a function for player 2 by borrowing it from player 1? So we can do const um, player 2 function, and then we can say player 1 dot get details. And most of you think that it can also have a function, and then we will be able to call this, right, player 2 function. But let's see what happens, right? So if I now run it, see, type error, this function is not, basically pl2 weapon is not a function. Why? Because this is not returning you a function, this is returning you the result of this, which is undefined, right? And you are trying to call undefined here. So this is where you can utilize bind, right? So what we can do, we can say that for this method please bind it and return me a new function. So this statement will return us a brand new function which we can call and use for player 2, right? So let's run it. Now if you see, Sachin is working fine, but Virat is not coming here, right? Something is wrong, right? My name is coming. So let's comment this out, then I think it will give a better idea. See, now this function is getting called somewhere because we are getting this and this, right? But my name is, and you don't get anything for this, right? Because when we create this function, we are not sending any context to this get details. That is the reason it doesn't know that what is this dot name, and also the age and city is undefined, right? So this is where what we do, we send this player to as context as the first argument here. Now if I run it, let me clear this out. See, now we are able to print my name is Virat, but still age and city is undefined. So what we can do, we can provide age 35 and city Mumbai, right? Now let me clear again and let me run it again. So now we are able to get my name is Virat and age 35, city Mumbai. So we are able to use bind method for creating a brand new function for my player 2, and then we are able to call it. And similarly, we can do this multiple times by borrowing this function from player 1. So this is how bind is useful. Now let's just debug this once, that how does it look like when we call it via bind, right? So let's run it again. Now if you see, we have called for this, we are just calling here, right, at line number 14 with this 35 and Mumbai, but we are still getting it executed inside this function with name as Virat. See, if you see this one, so here at this function now, we have at this function, since we have binded this with player 2, this name is available for us, and this is how it is working. And also if you just collapse this, you will see this age 35 and city Mumbai is also there, and this is how we are able to get the result. Nice. So I hope you understood about bind. Now we will write a polyfill for bind method. Okay. So first of all, I would like to explain why do we need polyfill. So polyfills are the way we define function for some standard classes in JavaScript, which you get from JavaScript. But sometimes what happens, you are in older browser and that function is not available in that browser. So for example, here we are able to use bind, right? Let me do it again. So I will show you how it is available. So if I do dot here now, so if you see these methods are coming, these are coming from JavaScript inbuilt prototypes. So if a browser is old and it doesn't have bind, right, then what would happen? It will simply fail. And this is where we write polyfill. So we don't want to break our function, and we want to create a brand new implementation for a particular method so that we can utilize that. So we will try to write our own bind method here, right? So now we will start writing. Now I think you understood why do we need polyfill. So let's start writing polyfill. Okay, let's do one thing. I will comment this out as well, and I will come to this letter. So let's say this is, we can name it like my bind or something, or you can say new bind, right? So as of now, if I run, it will fail, right? Because we don't have new bind, anything like that. So if you see player one dot get details, new bind is not a function because new bind is nowhere available. So we will create a new bind method, basically one polyfill one for us, which will do the same thing that it was doing for this bind method, right? So let's create at the top. So how do we write that polyfill, right? So this is the simple step. You have to write function dot prototype dot. Now you can see there are available methods which are coming, and we are going to register our own method in this prototype, which is new bind, right? We will register our own method here, and now what we can do, we can assign one function to this, right? Now let me go to this again. What I can do, I can create a function here. This function is going to be bind with this new bind. Now I will show you one in very important stuff, which is this keyword inside this. Whenever you write any polyfill for any method, there is one keyword which you should carefully use, which is called this. And I will try to console.log this here. This is where I have seen multiple people get confused, and let's understand what is this inside this binding. So basically we are trying to add one method in this prototype where we want to see what does this refers to, right? Now let me, since we are already having this here, so it will call this function, of course. Let's, of course, we are not returning anything, so that's why we are getting this error. But I have, if you see, line number 3 is getting printed in the console here, and you are able to see we are having the get details method as is available for us inside this, right? So now we have understood that whenever we say this keyword inside this function, it refers to the method for which we are going to apply this particular function on function prototype. So here we are applying this. So we are applying for this method, right? And that's this is why this is available like this. So can we call this like const original, like original function, right? This is just function on which we are going to run our polyfill. Nice. Now, whenever we were doing bind, if you recall, we were passing. So basically here it was bind and we are passing the context, right? So we would also get context for us. Nice. So let's print context now. And you will be able to see the context here, right? Context. Nice. Let me clear the console and let me run it. So at line number 3, you are able to see that the context that we are passing here is now available inside that prototype method, right? This is what we are trying to send. Till here we are okay. Now what we have to do, we have to return a function when we call this, and in such a way that we can execute this letter. That means we have to, so let me remove this. So we have to return a function. Okay, we have to return a function from here, and we want to do something here so that it can call the original function again. Now how can we call the original function? So there is most famous way called a call and apply within this function. So we will understand with call and without call. Okay, just I would just request that we are slow, but this is going to be a very important and very useful video, and you will, I'm just promising you as of now that you have not seen this explanation anywhere on this internet. So just bear with me. I will explain each and everything step by step. Now what do we want to get from here? We want to get a function, so we are returning a function from this place, right? So we will understand using call as of now, and then we will also understand how can we write polyfill for bind without using call. Now what I can do, so this is my original function, right? So if you remember call, what we can do, we can just write call, and then we can pass this context, right? This is how we utilize call method, and I'll give all the explanation. So let's just wait. So now if you see, we are able to get the result from this function, right? Because now we are passing the context using call method, but still we don't have argument. So how can we get the argument? So if you remember, with bind method, when you are binding, you can pass the argument, and when you are calling, then also you can pass the argument. It means we need arguments here, args, arg1, and then when you are calling, right? So when you're calling this, so when you're calling this function here, you want to send argument, so that we have to pass here. So let's pass it like args2, args2, and here let's make it args, right? Now, what do we want? We want to pass all these arguments, right? So can I pass like this, args1 and then args2, right? Now, if I let me bring it a little bit down, yeah. So now if you see, we are creating a functional instance with context and then we are passing some argument and that we are accepting here. As of now, we are not utilizing this one. We will try to test that out as well. So let's see. Now, if you see, we are able to see the same result of bind with our own method. So most of the time, even if you explain till this point, interviewer will be happy, okay, because you are able to achieve what bind does. But interviewer will ask you, can we write this polyfill without using call method? So can you think about this? How can we achieve this? But okay, before going to that, can we test the other case where you can utilize args1 and arg2, right? So I would say 35 here, and if I clear this out, see, so we are able to get the result because we are accepting args here as well and here. So when we are creating this function, then also we are accepting args, and we are calling this function, then also we are accepting args. Nice. Now, what do we want? We want to create our own concept so that we can get the same result which is coming with this call method, right? Nice. So can you think about it? How can we do that? So we already have the context. We have already seen that when you bind, when we are passing here player2, we are sending this particular object reference, right? So can we create one method in this instance? And that method will be this one. Okay. So now what we are going to do, we will have one particular method created inside this one for this, right? And we will be calling this inside this so that it will refer the context of this here. I think this is confusing, but I'll explain you step by step. So let's do one thing. Let's create one. So as of now, if I can show you console.log, let's understand with confidence, right? So if I now see, now from line number 6, we are getting this object where name is Virat. So now I am going to create a method in this object. Okay. So what I can do, I can do context, and maybe we can say tm method. Okay. And inside this method, what we will do, we have this original function, right? We have this original function which we can utilize, right? So we will store this function in this temp method. Are you with me? So now inside this object, we are going to store our original function. And if you remember, this original function is nothing but this function. So now we are storing this function as temp method. So then what do we need to do? We need to call it, right? So then we will call this, okay, we will call this method with arguments. So let's create a variable of arguments here so that we don't have to do the split operator thing again and again. So we can say mixed args, and then we can say we can just copy paste this line here. So what I'm just doing, we are just trying to keep the arguments at this place, and then I will try to call this. I'm again using split operator to get this value h comma separated, right? So now let me remove this console log for now, and you will be amazed to see the same result we are getting, right? So we are now not using call method, then also we are able to get the result. Are you with me? Because we are storing this particular original function as a property to the provided context, and then we are calling that particular method again with the arguments. Okay, now the interviewer will ask you, what if I have the same temp method, right, in this particular player to object? Then it will fail, right, because it will take the precedence of this. So then it will create a collision because you don't know about this object. This context is something that you are going to write for entire world, and this can be anything. They can have temp method inside this object. You are with, yeah, you are with me till here. So that is why we can't have anything hard coded here like this. Are you getting me? Because let me test this. Okay, so you will get this why I'm telling you. So let's say we have one method called temp1, which is one function, right? And let's do console.log temp2. Okay, now if I put a breakpoint here, okay, let me save it and let me put a breakpoint here at the context. Now if I run it, now you will see what I was saying you, this context, right? This context is having this temp1 method, right? So this temp1 could be temp method as well, and if they pass it as temp method, then this will collide. So that is why we don't want to keep it as a string for storing this original function, right? So this is our original function. If you get it here, right? So let's see how can we solve this problem. Okay. Now what I will do, rather than hard coding this, we will try to use, there is one thing called symbol in JavaScript, and we will create a temp variable from there, which is called symbol. So in JavaScript, symbol helps you to get unique identifier, or you can say unique value for anything that you pass in the symbol constructor. So even if you create two symbol with temp method string, they will not be equal. Let me show you that as well. So if I say symbol and a equals symbol and a, so I'm creating symbol for a character. This is okay. So you can see this is false. So this is how symbol helps you to get unique identifier which will not collide with any string, right? So we will use this particular variable for storing our original function, and then we will call this with the arguments. Let me remove this. So now even if I have this particular temp method here, right? So now I'm just trying to explain you the very edge case. The temp method which I have created here in a symbol, that is only that I'm sending, but it will not get confused because this will not match with this one. And if I run it, I get my result successfully, right? So this is how you can achieve this. Now, should we leave it like this? No, right? If somebody is calling my this new bind, we should not keep this method there, right, forever, because what we need is we have to just execute this when user is calling like this. So what we can do, we can clear this, delete context, because if we don't do this, and let me show you why do I want to do this, right? So if I do console dot log, and here if I print player 2, now you will see one interesting thing. See, we have already created instance of method, we are already executing that, then we are trying to print player 2. So my dear friend, if you see here at line number 26, we have name as Virat, we have temp method which is this one, and we are still having this symbol temp method, right, which we don't want to keep. So this can be an interview question as well from your interviewer, maybe follow-up question that how can you remove this, right? Because that is not the concern for this polyfill. So let's do one thing, delete context temp bar, and this is how you can remove that. So now if you see, I don't have that in this context of player 2. Also, now there are some more edge cases that you can think of, like if the provided context is not a function. So this is more than enough if you understand till this point, but just understand, what if this context is not an object? Can we run this? No, right? So if this context is not an object, then we have to just apply this argument, right? So then what you can write, if type of context is not equal object, also you can say that if context is not equal null, I think I should write this one. Yeah, so if type of context is object and context is not equal null, then we want to use this one, right? So I'll just cut paste here. I hope you're with me till here. Let me format this, right? Now if somebody is calling my this new bind with a particular thing which is not object, then also it should work, right? And then what we can do, we can simply call that, right? So let's do one thing. Here we can just have original function, right? And then we can pass our basically this stuff argument. So this works. Also, there can be more edge cases, right? What if the original function is not a function itself? Because in JavaScript, people can write this dot new bind on even string, right? Like they can write in JavaScript, although it will get error, but let's cover that edge case as well. So you can write if the basically type of we have already stored in original function, so I think we can write after this. I can say if type of original function is not equal to function, then you can simply throw new error, right? It's I can say this method is just for function, right? So now I think we cover all the edge cases now. And if I try to, if let's run it, and if I try to run, let's create one const a12 is equal to one string. And now if I try to run a112, right, dot my bind, let's say we let's try to call this. So we are not getting this, of course, because it's not a function, so it's not going there. But while we're writing, we just want to be safe, so that if mistakenly somebody is calling this function, they should get this error. I hope this video makes sense to you and you have enjoyed watching the entire thing about bind, from the very basic to writing polyfill using call and without call, also taking care of all the edge cases. All right, that's all from my side for this video, friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, be happy and keep coding. Bye bye.